A Treatise of Discretion. How the affection should not place reliance chiefly on penance, but rather on virtues, and how discretion receives life from humility, and renders to each man his due. These are the holy and sweet works which I seek for my servants. These are the proved intrinsic virtues of the soul, as I have told you. They not only consist of those virtues which are done by means of the body, that is, with an exterior act, or with diverse and varied penances, which are the instruments of virtue. Works of penance performed alone without the above mentioned virtues would please me little. Often, indeed, if the soul perform not her penance with discretion, that is to say, if her affection be placed principally in the penance she has undertaken, her perfection will be impeded. She should rather place reliance on the affection of love, with a holy hatred of herself, accompanied by true humility and perfect patience, together with the other intrinsic virtues of the soul, with hunger and desire for my honor and the salvation of souls. For these virtues demonstrate that the will is dead and continually slays its own sensuality through the affection of love of virtue. With this discretion, then, should the soul perform her penance, that is, she should place her principal affection in virtue rather than penance. Penance should be but the means to increase virtue according to the needs of the individual, and according to what the soul sees she can do in the measure of her own possibility. Otherwise, if the soul place her foundation on penance, she will contaminate her own perfection, because her penance will not be done in the light of knowledge of herself and of my goodness, with discretion, and she will not seize hold of my truth, neither loving that which I love, nor hating that which I hate. This virtue of discretion is no other than a true knowledge which the soul should have of herself and of me. And in this knowledge, virtue is virtue rooted. Discretion is the only child of self knowledge, and, wedding with charity, has indeed many other descendants, as a tree which has many branches, but that which gives life to the tree, to its branches and its root, is the ground of humility, in which it is planted, which humility is the foster mother and nurse of charity, by whose means this tree remains in perpetual calm of discretion. Because otherwise the tree would not produce the virtue of discretion, or any fruit of life, if it were not planted in the virtue of humility, because humility proceeds from self-knowledge. And I have already said to you that the root of discretion is a real knowledge of self and of my goodness, by which the soul immediately and discreetly renders to each one his due, chiefly to me in rendering praise and glory to my name, and in referring to me the graces and the gifts which she sees and knows she has received from me, and rendering to herself that which she sees herself to have merited, knowing that she does not even exist of herself, and attributing to me, and not to herself, her being, which she knows she has received by grace from me, and every other grace which she has received besides. And she seems to herself to be ungrateful for so many benefits, and negligent, in that she has not made the most of her time, and the graces she has received, and so seems to herself worthy of suffering. Wherefore she becomes odious and displeasing to herself through her guilt. And this founds the virtue of discretion on knowledge of self, that is, on true humility. For were this humility not in the soul would be indiscreet, indiscretion being founded on pride, and discretion is on humility. An indiscreet soul robs me of the honor due to me, and attributes it to herself through vainglory, and that which is really her own she imputes to me, grieving and murmuring concerning my mysteries, with which I work in her soul and in those of my other creatures. Wherefore everything in me and in her neighbor is cause of scandal to her. Contrariwise those who possess the virtue of discretion. For when they have rendered what is due to me and to themselves, they proceed to render to their neighbor their principal debt of love, and of humble and continuous prayer, which all should pay to each other, and further the debt of doctrine, and example of a holy and honorable life, counseling and helping others according to their needs for salvation, as I said to you above. Whatever a rank man may be in, whether that of noble, prelate, or a servant, if he have this virtue, everything that he does to his neighbor is done discreetly and lovingly, because these virtues are bound and mingled together, and both planted in the ground of humility, which proceeds from self-knowledge.